And just go ahead and focus on this guy here.
Hi, Ed.
How you doing, Bob?
Okay, whenever you're ready.
My name is Ed Clendenin. We're at the 2007 annual reunion of the 376 Bombardment Group Veterans Association. It is September 9th. And with me today is...
Bob Mellinger.
And when and where were you born?
Born in December the 22nd, 1922 in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And where were you on Pearl Harbor Day?
Pearl Harbor Day, I was working for the telephone company.
And how did you hear about it?
And I went into work that morning and there was guards on the door, which there had never been before. And we asked them what was going on, and they said, man, they just bombed Pearl Harbor this morning. That's how I learned that.
So you were out of high school?
I was out of high school.
Gainfully employed, so to speak?
I'd been working for the phone company, well, let's see, December 7th. I'd been working for them for almost a year.
Almost a year. And did you enlist? Were you drafted? What?
Well, one day on my lunch hour, I went downtown with a couple guys, and the draft board had been kind of biting at my tail a little bit, and I'd pretty close to being drafted. And I went downtown that day, and there was an Air Force band on the street, and they had a trailer, and they playing the Air Force song and getting everybody all hopped up. So I went in the trailer and I said, "What's the deal on the Air Force?" Because I was flying at the time, and I said,
You were a private pilot?
Well, I didn't have my license yet, but
Okay.
I was flying at the local airport.
Okay.
And I went in the trailer and I said, "Man, I want to get in the Air Force." He says, "Well, we'd like to have you." I signed up.
So you enlisted, and when was that roughly?
That was in, well, it's probably September of 1942.
And so that you signed on to the
And
Army
then-
Air Corps.
And then I had to fight with the draft board because they didn't want me to go in the Air Force. And
What they want you to do.
And then I finally did get a release from them to go to the Air Force, and I went to the first indoctrination in Akron, Ohio, and they said, no, you're not going to the Air Force, you're going to Signal Corps. Because I had almost 2 years service with the phone company. They said, "You're going to Signal Corps." I said, "No way, I don't want that, I want the Air Corps." I signed up in the Air Corps. Well, they sent me to Columbus, Ohio, and I fought them down there. And they said, no, you're going to the Signal Corps. I said, no, I'm going to the Air Force. So I finally went out. And the next thing I was on a train for California.
To gunnery school?
No, to basic training.
Basic
Fresno, California.
Okay.
In the county fairgrounds at Fresno.
And then what?
And then I got out of basic and they sent me to AM school, airplane
school?
mechanics.
Airplane mechanic.
Yeah, in Lincoln, Nebraska. I did about 7 months in Lincoln, and then I got put into a P-38 fighter outfit as a mechanic. Well, I wasn't in there very long, and one day at the formation, they said, "Anybody interested in flying?" So I, among a few others, stepped out. They took us to the hospital and gave us a physical, and like 7 of us passed the physical. Within a week, we were on a train headed for Panama City, Florida, gunnery school. I thought they meant flying. I thought maybe it would be pilot training, but no,
I
it
was going to
wasn't.
ask because you said you'd been flying, so
Right.
seemed to me being
Well,
a pilot or whatever would have been a natural.
Well, it wasn't pilot training. It
Wasn't
was gunnery
gunnery
school.
school.
So that looked like a bomber deal to me. Didn't matter. So I went through gunnery school, and then they kicked me around a little bit, back to Salt Lake City, and then back to Clovis, New Mexico, and I started training back there in Clovis, and I graduated as a flight engineer. And then 19 of us got on a train and we went to El Paso, Texas. And there's where they were forming crews, Biggs Field at El Paso.
And that's where you met.
That's where I met Burton and got on his crew.
And this was Dave Burton?
Dave Burton.
He was the pilot?
David C. Burton, yeah.
Okay.
And I liked the guy right off the bat. He was wild and crazy, but
Seemed to know what he was doing?
he knew what he was doing. I liked him. So being an engineer, we already had an engineer, and we had 3 engineers on the crew.
Okay.
And he gave me the option to leave his crew and go to another crew and earn a stripe.
Yes.
as a first engineer. But I didn't want to leave him. I thought he was pretty neat. I didn't
Yeah.
care much for the rest of the crew, but he was pretty neat.
So that's how you ended up being the tail gunner?
And then I volunteered for the tail. I said, I
Okay.
think I'd like that spot. I don't care where I'm going. I just want to see where I've been.
Okay. That's a good way of putting it. So you said the crew formed, would you say El Paso?
El Paso, Biggs Field.
And then, so
Then
now your
we
crew is
spent
formed.
we spent 2 months there training.
Were you in B-24s at that time?
B-24s, old D models,
Okay.
junk
Junk D models?
junk
Okay.
that shouldn't even been flying, but it was.
Okay.
And we flew our training and everything. We flew all over the West, California, Nevada. We flew all around.
Learning how to navigate and fly from. long
Navigating,
distance?
training, night, daytime, and all,
Okay.
And in fact, one day we even flew up and went over the Grand Canyon just to see the Grand
Just to
Canyon.
see. So where'd you go from El Paso?
Well, then they we were in that Pomeroy group. It was called a Pomeroy group. There's 46 crews. In
Okay.
fact, your dad was in it.
Right.
And they sent us to Grand Island, Nebraska to get B-24s to fly overseas.
Okay.
Well, we got up to Grand Island, and the next morning we look out, and there's all B-17s on the field. So what are those, Well, they're bombers. Well, no, not like ours,
So just a point of interest. So was my dad with you then in El Paso?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So he and his crew there were along with you, Burton.
Right.
Crew, and all the other
We
40.
were all together right there in the same
So
squadron.
all 40 of you. went up-
46 of
Went
us.
to Nebraska and they handed you B-17s.
They tried to.
Tried to. Okay.
Well, we had our crew pictures taken by the B-17.
Okay. And that's what's on the cover of Dave's
Exactly.
story while you're in front of a B-17. Okay.
Exactly. And then they decided, well, this isn't going to work. Back on a train we went. It was after Thanksgiving in 1943.
Okay.
And back on the train we went to Newport News, Virginia. And they stuck 460 of us on a ship full of infantry.
Okay.
The whole ship was infantry people,
Except for you guys.
except for 460 of us.
Okay.
And we went overseas.
When you left, did you know where you were going?
No, had no idea. We were on the ocean for quite a while, and we ended up in Casablanca,
Okay.
Morocco, and they put us in I guess it was a detention and replacement center for infantry
So here you are, 460 airmen in
in an infantry camp,
Okay.
and the infantry commanding officer hated us with a passion
Because you were airmen?
because we were airmen.
Okay.
And we didn't belong in there. He don't know how we got there, but we were there.
Okay.
So, and Dave was our squadron leader, so-called squadron leader. We had a bunch of crews under a squadron.
Okay.
And he insisted and told Dave that he had to march us. We had to do formations, and we had to march. So we'd go out and march, and we'd just go over the hill someplace and bunk out for a half a day and come back. Or one day he even took us into town, into Casablanca, Burton did, which was a no-no.
Oh, okay.
And then the captain got on him bad, and so we started to march in the morning early, and we marched right past his house, singing the Air Force song.
Oh, that must have gone over well.
Oh, that went over, like you know what.
Okay.
But anyhow, we got out of that. I think we were headed for CBI. Did your dad ever tell you that?
No, he did not.
Well, we had jungle packs on our chutes and everything, with machetes and all that in there for mosquito netting and everything for CBI. And that's where we were headed.
Okay.
And then December the 28th mission to Vicenza, Italy, the 376 got hit pretty hard, and the 512th was annihilated.
Right.
No more airplanes.
No more airplanes.
No more crews. So within 3 days, we were on our way to Italy,
So suddenly you went from going to the CBI, China, Burma,
India,
India, to going up to Italy
to Italy.
to replace what appeared to be a decimated unit.
So we got up there on a C-47, 2 crews on each airplane.
Uh-huh.
We got there on the 6th of January, 44. And it was raining, it was muddy, it was a nasty looking place. And we got over to the squadron, and we were assigned to the 512th. We got over there. there was no crews. There was no airplanes. There was empty tents. Look around, where is everybody? Well, we don't have anybody. Well, what happened? Well, they all got shot down, December 28th. So first thing you ask them, what's the average life of a crew member? Well, the guy said maybe a month if you're lucky.
How's that, did you all look at each other and go, what the heck did we get ourselves into? Or?
Well, we kind of wondered, so we just picked an empty tent and settled in and made the best of it.
Now the 376 stood down for a month.
A whole month, the month of January, they retrained the whole outfit. They brought a lot of crews in from other squadrons to fill in, you know.
So like Watson was somebody.
Watson came over from the 13th, and well, one of the guys, Milt Renke's here today.
Right.
He was Watson's co-pilot, and he came over with only 2 hours time in a B-24.
Right. I'm going to be talking with Milt this afternoon.
Yeah, and he was put on Watson's crew.
So you practiced for roughly a month.
The whole month we practiced, and just bombing, formation practice, and so forth. And it was kind of boring. And
Now there was an accident on January
there sure
16th.
was.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, we were following that guy. We were right behind him. And I was standing between the pilot and the co-pilot calling off airspeed for the landing.
Right.
And we saw it happen. One of the guys, we were doing echelon landings where they pull up and like a fighter plane.
Okay.
And Colonel Gillette, or I guess he was captain then, or
He
major.
he was the CO of the
Yeah.
512. Yeah.
Major maybe.
Yes.
And he liked that echelon landing like a fighter plane. Well, the guy pulled up and his right wingtip hit the tail of the plane next to him, knocked the tail off. The airplane just did a flip and turned over and went down on its back and exploded.
That was happened right in front of you.
Right smack in front of us.
Did both planes crash?
No, the other guy had a damaged wingtip. He went out and bailed out his crew and then came back and landed. He was all right, no
He was all
problem.
right.
But the other ones, they were gone.
So you come into a base which has been decimated, and right in front of you is another accident, and you
Right.
haven't flown a single mission yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
We flew our first mission actually on the 8th day of February.
8th day of February. And where
That was our
where-
first mission.
What was the target?
Viterbo, Italy, and it was nothing. There was
Nothing?
nothing to it. It was just a trip. It was fun.
It's fun.
And then the next day, well, the 10th, we did another one up to Campileone, Italy. Nothing happened. The 12th, we did another one near Campileone, near the Anzio beachhead. Nothing. It wasn't anything. And we were going clear along, wondering when the war is going to start.
Okay. What happened? What mission told you that this
Well-
was really going to be a war?
February the 23rd. It's
The infamous
Steyr, Austria.
infamous Steyr. Tell us about that.
Well, we got into Steyr there. We were bombing a Messerschmitt factory in Steyr,
Now this is in Austria.
Austria.
Okay.
And we're come on the target, and the leader made a big boo-boo. He did 2 360s before we got to the target. In other words, Germans, here we come. And
So you went to the target, circled twice
we circled out at the IP,
at the IP. Okay.
clear over Wels, Austria, which was one of their biggest fighter bases.
Okay.
And it give them time to get everybody that they could get up there.
Did you ever find out why you circled?
Well, I'd rather not get into
Okay.
that.
Okay. So anyway, so you circled at the IP.
Yeah.
Basically notified the Germans that you were there.
Well, yeah, we just broadcast the fact that we were there, but it
Okay.
was the group commander's goof up. But that's
Anyway, so
neither
then
here
you
nor there.
proceeded on into the target.
And then we went in the target, and I remember Dave called me and he said, "There's fighters up there, isn't there?" And called me. He said, "What's it look like back there?" I said, "Looked like the whole damn German Air Force."
Now, where were you in the formation? Your plane.
We were deputy lead
So you're up front.
up front on the right wing of the leader.
Okay.
And we were flying the old number 24, the Strawberry Bitch,
Oh, okay.
that's now in a museum in Dayton.
Correct. Okay.
And we had that old beast, and we were going along, and that was an old D model, as you know.
Right.
And But I looked back there and I saw every kind of German airplane that I'd been trained to look at. I'd never
So-
seen them before.
But there they were.
There they were, and they were all coming after us.
Okay.
Well, as you remember, our sea flight got knocked out. And we lost a whole bunch of people on that.
I think the group lost 8 planes.
8 planes, yeah, and they all come out of sea flight. Because when they made one of those turns, they did the crack the whip and knocked sea flight off the end, and they were scattered. Couldn't
Oh,
keep up,
okay, yes.
and the Germans just laid into them.
Now, that was the sea flight primarily 512? Because the 512 lost at least 2
Well, there was
planes.
512th was in it, but there was some other. I think the 13th had some planes in it too,
Okay.
in sea flight.
In
But we were lucky; we got out of it, and we got away from the fighters. Oh, and then our P-38s that were to meet us en route
the
back.
escort, yes.
They picked up and they were called, and they come up and broke up the fight. They saved us.
They saved you.
P-38s,
Oh, okay.
and then they didn't escort us home because they were out of fuel. But they come up and got into the battle and saved us.
So once the P-38s intercepted the other fighters, did you ever see the fighters?
Well,
on
we
that mission?
that let us get time to get away.
Okay.
And I remember the flak was intense up there at Steyr too. They had a terrific flak batteries.
So were the planes shot down with flak or fighter or
Both.
both?
Both. It was wild. It was a wild day.
So was that
So-
your hairiest mission?
So then that was the worst one, and then we really decided that yeah, we were in a war.
Okay.
Wasn't going to be fun, you know.
Wasn't no milk runs like the other ones.
No, right. So then they started to get kind of nasty after that.
Was that your worst? Was the Star? Would you consider that your worst mission, or did they get?
I
even
would say
worse?
that was probably my worst one. Some of them were almost as bad, but that was probably the worst one.
So you flew then your 50 missions.
I flew 51 totally.
51 missions.
Yeah.
Now, and then that was what end of when you finished June, July thing
June the 13th.
was your last mission.
44, and I was flying with Jerry Brown, as Burton was done. And in fact, the day that I flew my last mission, Burton took a group up to Naples to fly home, or to get a boat home, and he cracked up a 24 at Naples.
Oh, okay.
And he had about, I don't know, he had about 15 or 20 guys in it. Nobody got hurt bad.
But he lost the airplane.
Oh yeah, he
Okay.
wiped it out.
Had to hitchhike back home
I got home somehow,
somehow.
but I never saw him after that.
You never saw him after that.
Never saw him after that.
So you
In
finished.
fact, I never saw the rest of the crew after that day.
So you were.
They
flying
just went
home-
all directions, and I never saw another one.
Did you fly home? Were you on
I
a
came
boat?
home on a boat.
In a boat.
Yeah.
What'd you do after you came home?
Well, after I came home, I went back to work for the phone company. I still had my job.
Did they discharge you, or did you have to?
No, I spent, after I come back to the States,
Yes.
I went to Miami Beach, and they wanted to reassign me in the B-29s to go to Japan.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't see that idea. And I'd been through 51 missions over there. I wasn't too anxious to get in a B-29 and go to Japan.
So what did they have you do?
So I ended up as a permanent party in a convalescent hospital.
A permanent party?
Yeah, I was on staff at a convalescent hospital, and believe it or not, 4 of us were in an airplane model shop, or not hobby shop. They could build airplanes, boats, whatever they wanted to build. We had lathes, we had all kind of equipment in that shop.
So you were helping injured veterans
Right.
recover?
Air
whatever?
Force.
Air Force?
We had all kind of officers in there, from colonels on down to privates.
These were guys who had
Combat
wounded in some way.
fatigue,
Combat
wounded,
but
and
wounded.
recovering, and so forth. And I was second in charge of the model shop, and it was fun.
and you were there until the end of the war?
I was there until I got discharged.
discharged, and that was
September the 26th of 44.
of 44?
Yeah.
They let you out before the war was ended.
No, 45.
Okay,
45.
okay.
Sorry about that.
That's
yeah.
okay.
45.
45.
Yeah.
And then you
yeah,
went back to the telephone company.
Yeah.
Okay.
But talking about another one at Steyr, a second trip to Steyr, I ended up with, I was in the tail turret, and I ended up with this hole, if you can see right here, the hole in the bottom of the turret, 20
Yes.
millimeter,
Yes.
and it blew the whole inside of the turret out. It was right between my feet.
And you were in it at the time?
And well, I was in there. I was shooting at the guy that did it.
Okay.
And I was almost, as I remember, I was almost standing up to really see him. He was coming up low,
Uh-huh.
and he ME 109, and he was popping out of the nose, 20 millimeter.
Yes.
And I ever since when I ended up with this little piece right here in my left boot,
Uh-huh.
and that hit me like a baseball bat.
Okay.
I mean, it hurt. It hurt bad.
Where did it hit? I mean, leg?
It was in
foot?
my left boot.
Oh, it hit you
in the big heavy flying boot I had on.
Okay.
But it didn't penetrate the skin or anything, so no Purple Heart.
No Purple Heart.
But he won't do it again. He never got a chance to do another one.
You shot him down?
He was done. But
Okay.
I just at this reunion, I got a gift of a 20 millimeter shell.
Wow. So that whole thing came through the...
This
the
is what
turret?
hit. This is what went in the airplane right here. This, of course, stayed in his airplane or someplace.
Sure.
But this 20 millimeter, and this is the nose of it that unscrews, and that's the same as this part right here.
And you never found the rest of the...
I lost that part, and that was given to me recently by another gentleman. And the piece I had in my boot was just like that, but I lost it in the airplane due to the cold.
Uh-huh.
I got out, I thought I was wounded because I was covered with hydraulic fluid from the knees down. I was just soaked. And I thought it was blood because it was red. And I think it was a bombardier or something come back to help me, and I got out of the turret, and that was in my boot. And it was, 50 below zero up there, and with the gloves on, I lost it. I
Oh.
tore that airplane apart looking for that. Never did find it.
So the shell took out the hydraulic system to the turret?
When this exploded, it just took out the turret, wiped everything out underneath. I couldn't even move the guns anymore. But I had already done what I needed to do with them, and that was
Fortunately,
it.
there was no other fighter coming at you.
Well, if there was, I couldn't help
You
it.
couldn't help it.
Couldn't help it.
Did you stay in the turret or did you get out?
I stayed in it. I got
Okay.
back in and had to sit there, You have to act like you're doing something, but
I see.
you can't move the guns.
Was the air battle still going on? During
Well,
this
it was
whole
starting
time?
to fade
Fade
out
out.
by then. But that was the second trip to Steyr, and that was enough.
And what date was that? Did you say?
That was the 2nd of April.
2nd of April.
And this first one was the 23rd of February,
Right.
the first trip up there.
So far, the two memorable missions, both
Both were Steyr.
Did you go to Ploesti?
Oh, about 4 or 5 times.
But it sounds like the Steyr mission was,
Ploesti was rough. The anti-aircraft fire was intense
uh-huh,
at Ploesti as we went over the refineries.
uh-huh.
But the fighters would pick you up as soon as you got out of the ACAC. They knew enough to stay out of it too,
Okay.
As soon as you got out of their anti-aircraft fire, the fighters would walk in on you.
Is that true regardless of where the target?
Mostly, yes. Mhm.
Did you have fighter escort pretty much every mission at that time?
Well,
in
we
the war?
didn't start to get fighter escort until probably about April.
April?
Really good fighter escort that would go clear to the target with us. And then when they were using the P-47s
Uh-huh,
and the P-38s.
uh-huh.
Then the P-51s come on, and the Tuskegee Airmen, they escorted us quite a bit from then on.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, later, yeah.
Did
The
you
Red-
know they were the Tuskegee Airmen at the time, or you just? knew
Yeah,
they
we
were-
did.
You
yeah,
did you?
Yeah,
They were what, red tail?
red tails.
Okay.
P-51s with a red tail. And they were pretty good escorts.
Yeah, one of their claims to fame is they never lost a bomber.
Not true.
Oh, okay, not true?
Not true. They kind of debunked that they did lose some,
Okay.
but they were
they-
good.
But they were good, and you felt safer with them around.
Well, any escort you feel
Any escort you
safer.
felt
Yeah,
safer.
right.
Okay,
But they would take you clear of the target and hang out, wait.
waiting for you to,
And then the fighters, as it went on toward the end of my missions, the fighters were getting fewer and fewer.
the German fighters.
Yeah, the aircraft. Well, we'd take all their oil away from them, and they didn't have fuel.
So your job, more or less, as a gunner declined. I mean, you didn't have much to do as far as shooting or defending the airplane. Because the fighters weren't as prevalent.
Well, we get a few attacks.
Sure.
But, yeah, but the anti-aircraft fire was. Then one time over Anzio, we caught an 88 millimeter right through the ship. Come in right about a foot behind my turret. Went through the catwalk and went out through the top of the horizontal stabilizer.
Without exploding?
It exploded right above us.
Did you
But
feel that one?
Dave called back. Yeah, I feel it big time. And then Dave called back and he said, "There's something wrong back there." He said, "I'm having trouble with the controls." So I said, "Well, I'll see what it is." And I crawled out of the turret and I saw the hole. And I said, "Boy, good thing you weren't going 5 miles an hour faster." You know right, I got that one.
So up until you got out of your turret, you didn't know.
Yeah, no, I didn't know it.
You didn't know you'd missed.
No, I knew
death
we'd hit a bump, and when it went off above us, we could feel the shock, you know. But the metal was all jagged and rough
Sure.
around the cables, and I just pulled it all away from the cables. And he said, "Hey, that's good now." He said, "What'd you do?" I said, "I just cleared the cables. Don't worry about it. We'll look at it when you get home."
So fortunately, the shell had not severed the control line.
It was a cable. It was a shell that was timed to go off at altitude,
Ah,
not an impact.
I see.
If it had been on impact, we wouldn't have been sitting here today.
And this was over Anzio.
It was over, Camp Leone up there, it's near the Anzio beachhead.
So that would have been in early February or middle February?
Yeah, about middle of February, yeah.
Okay.
But the anti-aircraft fire up there was pretty bad.
Was it?
Yeah, they were pretty bad. And there was no fighters up there to mount anything.
Because you were basically supporting the ground troops
Right,
at the Anzio
right.
beach.
Anzio, there was a time there they were going to push Anzio back into the ocean,
Uh-huh.
all the troops.
Uh-huh.
They were about ready to back out of that. And they called on the Air Force. And we had everything that would fly up there.
In support of the ground troops.
Right.
Did you, were you on any of the Monte Cassino?
I was on the Monte Cassino raid, yep. We took that place right off the top of the hill.
One of the discussions, I'll call it that, about Monte Cassino was whether or not the Germans were in fact using it as a lookout. What was your
they sure were.
They were. Okay.
Yeah. They were shooting the troops out as fast as they were trying to come up the hill. And it was just a fortress is what it was.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it was bad. And it had to be destroyed, there's no question about it.
Okay.
10 years ago when we went back on that trip to Italy,
Uh-huh.
we visited there.
Okay.
And toured the
Visit Monte
place.
Cassino?
Visited the Abbey up there. And one of the guides told us, he said, "You know who rebuilt this?" He says, "You people rebuilt it. It's rebuilt better than it was originally. The United States paid the bill."
Walking around it, could you tell that it had been destroyed at one point in time?
Only from the pictures.
Only from the picture?
Yeah, they had a lot of pictures and they had a lot of artifacts and bomb fragments and so forth. But that was all. You couldn't tell. It was all rebuilt new. But the town of Monte Cassino was right down on the halfway down the hill,
Uh-huh.
and it was still in ruins. They never rebuilt it.
Never rebuilt the town?
They went down in the valley and built a whole new town.
Mm.
Real nice town. But they didn't rebuild the old one on the hill.
What was it like to go back to, I assume you went back to San Pan also?
We started out, that 25 of us on the trip,
Okay.
and 12 of us were from the group.
Uh-huh.
And we went to northern Italy. We flew over and landed in Milan, and went up to Switzerland border, and stayed there overnight.
Mhm.
Then we started a tour with the bus. We had the same bus all the way down, and we just toured zigzag back and forth through Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Venice, and we went to Rome. We went every place. Pisa, saw the Leaning Towers, and we did everything.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up at Sampan,
Mm-hmm.
and we were disappointed because they didn't give us enough time in Sampan.
Oh, I see.
We got on the runway, which was still there,
Uh-huh.
and it was all full of cargo containers that were owned by the United Nations. We don't know what was in them, but they were guarded.
Okay.
The place was all fenced in, and they were guarded. And there was a few of the buildings left, and 512th headquarters was right there, just sitting there just like it was in 44.
Wow. Was
but
it
we
being
couldn't
used-
get over there.
Was it being used for anything, or could you tell?
Yeah, farmers had it. Farmer had
Farmers
it.
had it.
And where all the airplanes were parked, all the hard stands all around the area was all in grapevines.
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 it
They
was
were
now
putting it to good
Good
use. Yeah,
Okay.
because grapes were big over there, and the olive groves were coming back, and everything was just nice.
Was the town the same?
The town had gone from about 1,000 people to almost 10,000. Sampan.
Uh-huh.
The streets were paved. They had curbs. They had cars. They had trucks. And when we were there, they were using mules and wagons,
Uh-huh.
and the streets were dirt. They'd haul their wine around in big casks with a mule pulling it on a wagon. And
Wow.
then now they have a beautiful top of the line winery
Mm.
called a Co-op, and they all brought their grapes there and dumped them in a big hopper, and everything was all new and real fancy. And in fact, they wined us. We had a celebration in town that wouldn't quit, and we were in the mayor's office, and we got food and wine, and then we went to another place and got food and wine. Then we went to the winery and more food and wine. Then we went to a nightclub for dinner and more food and wine. And it was really a day.
Did you meet anybody you had met before?
An old man come up to me. He was an old man. He was probably in his 50s or 60s, and he kind of latched onto me. He says, "You remember when the kids come and bum food?" I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "That's me." He said, "I bummed food from you."
Ah,
Yeah, he said, and he hung on me all afternoon.
okay.
It was fun. It was
Fun.
neat.
Well, last night we were discussing, and you were commenting, we were talking about perception whether or not the Italians were acting as German spies, and you were telling me about an incident. So could you relate that?
Oh, at the base, just normally, we had a lot of Italians working around the base, doing all kind of jobs. And one night we heard on the radio that Axis Sally, we used to listen to her a lot. And she said, "You guys down to 512th," she said, "you better watch your timing." She said, "Your clock is 5 minutes slow." She said, "And tomorrow you're going to Germany." So she said, "You better set your clock or you're going to be late." And it was 5 minutes slow.
Late. It was. And did you go to Germany the next
We
day?
went to Germany.
And did you guys look
Now-
at each other and realize you had a spy, or what?
Now you know darn well that came from somebody.
Right.
It didn't come from any of us.
Yes.
But those people, we heard later that they had radio equipment in Sampan that they'd radio to the Germans what they had to do.
So did the Italians then have access to the
They were all over the
briefing rooms,
base.
whatever?
Yeah, they'd
Oh.
go into the briefing room after we were flying, and the target's still on the board and everything. And
So it was,
what do you think?
it would be it would be easy for someone.
Oh,
groups
it'd
of
be very
someone.
easy. Yeah, it was no secret.
Okay.
In fact, probably if they asked one of the guys where they're going, they'd probably told them. They were all around the base doing all kind of stuff.
Well, after this Access Sally broadcast, was the security tightened?
No, not
No?
really. Not really. But we used to listen to her for kicks.
For kicks?
Yeah.
Okay.
She played good music. She played, big band stuff and
Uh-huh.
good music for us. And then she had her propaganda, and
Sure.
it was kind of neat.
Did the USO ever come to your base?
Well, yeah, the officers, they landed there and give us donuts a couple times, and next thing you know, they're in the officers club, and we never saw them again.
Never saw them again?
Never saw them again.
So-
Rank has its privilege.
On R&R, did you go? First of all, I found some guys never got R&R.
Yeah, we did. After our seventh mission, we were sent to Isle of Capri for a week,
Uh-huh.
and we slept in a bed in a hotel and with sheets and ate off of dinner plates, and we ate. I mean, it was like living again for a
Was-
whole week.
Was R&R free? I mean, did you have to buy anything, or was it?
Oh no! All you had to do was buy your vino and your stuff you wanted to drink. There was
room and
plenty
bo-
of that.
But room and board was included.
Oh yeah, that was paid for by the Air Force.
Okay, so after your seventh mission, you were allowed to.
Well,
Take
it depended on when they went.
Okay.
We just happened to hit it on seventh
Seventh.
mission.
Was that the only time you went on R&R?
That was the only time we went on R&R.
Okay.
And then on our trip, we went back to Ala Capri and spent a day there
Oh, when you went back
on our 10
40
years
10
ago,
years
right?
ago. And it had changed much?
No, it was exactly the same as it was. It hadn't changed. There wasn't anything different.
So you could find the hotel or wherever it was you would
We
stay?
found the hotel we were in. We found everything. We found the bars we hung out in, and it was all the same.
All the same?
All the same.
Except
Just
this time you had to pay for it.
that time we were paying.
Paying for it.
But it was interesting. It was really interesting. But the nice part about it was the day that we were at Sampan was our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that was,
And we went back to Brindisi to the hotel.
uh-huh.
And that night at dinner, they had a cake and champagne and a whole bit for us.
Oh, that was nice.
The tour guide did it.
Uh-huh.
So it was fun. That was our 50th anniversary, 10 years ago.
So while you were there, back to your service time, so you'd go to R&R to Capri, and then I guess you got into Sampan once in a while?
Well, quite often. The pass truck went in, and if you were off, you weren't flying, you could go. Just hop on a truck and go into Sampan.
Were there any other towns that you went to very often?
No, we went to Lecce. We didn't go to Sampan.
Oh, you went to Lecce?
Yeah, there's nothing in Sampan then,
Okay.
but we went into Lecce.
Wasn't there a...
The 98th was based in Lecce.
Oh, okay.
So the 98th was around town, and we were around town. A lot of GIs around, all Air Force.
Was there much intermingling between the 98th and
Oh, yeah,
36?
yeah.
376?
all Air Force, you know. There was no infantry or anything in there, so we were all right.
There was also a beach, I believe, near Tarrant.
We had a beach down south on the sea there,
Okay.
and it was real nice. We had a beautiful beach, and we go down there and swim. Then we had a pass truck that would run down there, you know. It was fun.
It was fun. Okay.
So it wasn't all that bad.
There was also the Yugoslav detachment was also assigned to the 512th.
Well, there was four Yugoslav ships originally,
Yes.
and when I got there was two. There's two of them had already been shot down,
Uh-huh.
and there was two. And then, well, I don't know if that one got shot down while I was there or it was afterwards. I think they ended up with one.
Did you intermingle with the
No,
Yugoslav? No?
they stayed themselves pretty much
Okay.
because they didn't talk much English. They were talking Yugoslav,
Okay.
and but we saw them all the time. They flew with us.
Did now some Americans flew as crew replacements for the Yugoslavs. Were you ever in one?
No,
of
I
them?
didn't. I didn't get in on any of that.
Okay,
A lot of the fellows did.
but not you.
I never got in on it.
Did
No.
any of them ever substitute for any of your crew members?
No, never.
Okay. And your crew pretty much remained intact for most of their missions?
Our crew, nobody ever got hurt. Well, Burton got a little tiny scratch, which got him a Purple Heart, a little piece of flak, probably big as your fingernail, and he got a Purple Heart on that. Not a serious wound by any means,
Uh-huh.
but nobody else got hurt. This was the closest that anybody got anything.
And then the 88 through the fuselage.
In the 88 through the fuselage. I was catching more flak and problem down there in the tail turret than anybody was. I don't know whether they were picking on me or what, but, well, you can see in this picture, if you can see it, the top of the glass was all shot away
Huh.
at Klagenfurt, Austria beforehand, and they never replaced it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they had to put a new turret in when they got that damage there from that 20 millimeter. They just took it over to depot and put a new turret in it.
Did you ever fly in that plane again?
Oh yeah. We didn't fly that plane constantly, but we flew it quite a bit.
You mentioned flying the Strawberry Bitch on that February mission. Did you ever fly the Strawberry Bitch
Yeah,
again?
I think we had 4 or 5 missions in the bitch,
Okay.
which is now at Wright Pat.
When
And
you
I
went-
like to go back there and see that. I like to pat it.
Oh, you like to pat it and
Yeah.
see? That was a D model, and the one, I believe that plane was not a D model.
This one was an H.
Was there much, did you notice much difference between?
Oh yeah, the oxygen system in the later planes, the J's and the H's, was a constant flow system, or I mean demand system. When you breathe, or no, it's constant flow. I'm sorry. when you breathed, you had the oxygen was there, you know.
Uh-huh.
That other one it was the old bag that's on the bottom, and you get all froze up, and you have to keep squeezing it to keep the ice out of it. And they were old on the D's.
Did Burton ever comment that the planes flew different, or,
Well, not really, not that much different.
okay.
D was a pretty good airplane, because we flew those in training all the time.
So you were pretty much acclimated to them.
Yeah, we knew the D's.
So then when you got over there and you started flying H's, did you have to kind of learn how to fly?
Little
Yeah,
bit, there
little
was
bit.
little difference. But see, the old D didn't have a nose turret,
Right.
and that would made a little difference.
What was when your crew was formed, were you given a nose turret gunner, or did someone have to become a nose
No,
turret?
we had 10 men,
Okay,
and we could cover everything.
okay.
But on the Strawberry Bitch, for instance, that was a squadron dog. Nobody wanted to fly those old D's.
Mm-hmm.
They hated it. But
So what did your nose turret gunner do when you were flying the D model?
well, he sometimes he would go back and do the photo work with the camera, you know, the Fairchild camera,
Oh, he became the cameraman?
something like that. Yeah,
The camera would photo,
we had a Fairchild K-22 we carried in the airplane, and we'd shoot out the camera hatch at the target. They'd take all the pictures that everybody shot and analyze what damage we did.
was the camera on every airplane or just a select few?
They were there was a camera on every airplane.
So every airplane was able to take its own pictures?
Take bomb strike photos, right.
Would-
Sometimes it was done out of the waist, and sometimes it was done off the bomb bay.
Did you carry a special cameraman, or did one of your crew have
No,
to
just
take-
somebody did it.
Was it
whoever.
automatic?
Sometimes a waist gunner would even do it.
Was the camera kind of automatic when the bombs
Right.
released?
No, just pull the trigger.
Okay.
But we plowed a lot of ground around targets too. If you go over there today, they say there are chuck holes all around those areas.
So you're basically flying through flak, and somebody has to go click the camera shutter? Is that-
Well, yeah, basically,
Okay,
somebody in the waist, if there's flak, there's no fighters.
right.
So it's just a case of taking the camera and shooting some pictures.
Okay.
Then the photo group would take them and analyze them and put them everything together. It's where you get your bomb strike photos that you see.
Sure. You mentioned when you got that after that mission, you never saw your crew again.
I never did.
Was that true after the war also?
The only one I ever kept in contact with was Burton, and I was in contact with him up until a month before he passed away.
Okay, so you,
And I know for a fact there's about 4 or 5 of them are dead,
uh-huh.
and the others we don't know where they are or anything. So I could be the last survivor of that crew.
But you don't know.
Don't know.
Okay. So you and did Dave come to reunions?
Dave was at one reunion in 1989. He went to Fort Worth, Texas,
Uh-huh.
and he never came back.
That was the last just,
Couldn't get him back to a reunion. Now, he visited us in Florida, and he visited us in Ohio.
uh-huh.
And when he came to Ohio, I made arrangements to go down to the museum and get in the Strawberry Bitch,
Uh-huh.
and they gave us an hour in the airplane,
Wow.
and we had a ball. We just went from one end to the other,
Reminiscing and,
reminiscing and everything like that. But Dave then, but he never came back to another reunion. Couldn't get him out.
when you were in the Strawberry Bitch recently, I mean after the war,
Right.
had the airplane size, I mean, did you think beforehand, well, this is a big plane, but today you got it and said that we were in the small thing, or?
Well, going up the catwalk through the bomb bay, I don't know whether it shrunk or I expanded,
Okay,
but it wasn't as easy going through the bomb bay as it was
What?
when I was over there. I
okay,
haven't figured that out yet. But
I see. Because
Things
I've
like that.
heard guys say, gee, that, when I remember seeing it was a big airplane, and today looking at it saying, gosh, that was a small.
Well, after you've seen the 747s and stuff like that, it's a small airplane,
Uh-huh,
111-foot wingspan.
right.
But it still looked big, you know, to see it. It don't look big at Dayton. You see it sitting there on the floor, you know,
Right.
it don't look big. But I can just visualize, I look at it and I visualize it sitting over in Sampan.
Have you ever, you have children, I take it?
Yeah, son and a daughter.
Have you ever gone to the museum with either of them and said, here's the plane I
Back
flew?
in the, I think it was probably in the 60s,
Uh-huh,
late 60s, early 70s.
uh-huh,
We went down to the Air Force Museum in Dayton.
uh-huh,
First time I'd been down there. And they had a lot of airplanes parked outside in those days. They didn't have the buildings, you know, that they have today. And the Strawberry Bitch was outside.
yes,
And I spotted that thing, and I ran for it. And I'm up there patting it and taking pictures. I took a roll and a half of film, I think, of the pictures.
so you didn't know it was gonna be there?
I didn't know it was there. I had no idea.
Uh-huh,
And they looked at me, they thought I was cracking up.
your children?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
okay,
I had to get them up there and explain everything to them. You know, they were just small kids then.
uh-huh,
And the boy now is in Houston, Texas, and he's in his 50s, and the daughter's in her 50s. She's in Orlando, Florida.
uh-huh,
So I just heard, she just told me a few weeks ago that my grandson, he's in college,
yeah,
and he wants to go to the Air Force Museum with me
and see the,
and see the airplanes. He wants to see the Strawberry Bitch.
so is he taking an active interest in?
Well, he's
in
starting to.
Starting to,
Yeah, he didn't seem to before, but he's kind of getting the bug, I guess.
so have you written down, or do you intend to write, I'll call it a memoir for lack of a better word, for him?
Well, I haven't yet.
Okay.
This will help.
Has he asked you, Granddad, what did you do?
Yeah, well, I've told them, but they,
Sure.
you know, if they want to listen, okay. If they don't, but I was never, I never was too quiet about things.
Okay.
I can kind of talk.
Well, like some of the stories you've just been telling us, I mean, I hope you've told them,
Yeah.
so. Okay, well, is there anything, we're kind of getting close to time, is there anything
Oh.
else you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
Oh, I think that about covers it, Ed.
Okay,
I enjoy these reunions
well,
and all these BS sessions that we have.
good.
See all the guys and talk things over.
Well, I can tell you I'm enjoying it.
It's been real nice, especially today, yesterday, talking to that Milt Rinke. He was shot down on that Steyr mission,
Yes,
and he ended up as a POW in Germany. And it's interesting talking to him about what happened up there and what they did, and you know how they got by. And I learned a lot on that.
well, from a purely personal standpoint, I mean, because you and Milt flew with my father, and my dad never said anything, it's nice to hear stories relating to him, so.
Yeah.
I certainly appreciate,
Well, I knew your dad, and I knew he was in the squadron with us.
yes,
He ended up in the 512th. See, everybody in the Pomeroy didn't end up in the 512th.
correct.
Some went to other groups even.
Do you remember Al Heinentak?
Who?
I'm not sure I'm not pronouncing his name right. Heinentak? His first name was Al. He went to the 515.
No, I didn't know him.
Okay, because he was in the Pomeroy group. What I was going to say was after I started going to the reunion and my name shows up, he calls me on the phone and says, "Hey, Ed, you old bastard." And I said, "No, you've got the wrong old bastard. You wanted my father." Because I'm Ed Jr.
Yeah, right.
But he was in the Pomeroy group and known Dad in training,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Well, down at Biggs Field, we didn't know everybody in the Pomeroy group,
Sure,
naturally, you know.
but you would know some.
We knew some, yeah.
So,
But where we really knew him, got to know him, was after we got in the 512th together.
right.
And that's where we learned him.
Was Pomeroy a person?
Yes, he
I guess-
was. And I don't know what the story exactly was on it, but
Did he go across the ocean with you, or
that I don't know.
you don't even know who? Okay,
No, I don't know.
I was always curious as to how you.
But
got
you
the
know,
name
you've seen the
Pomeroy.
pictures, everything's Pomeroy group,
Right.
so number so-and-so. And
Right.
I have the roster at home of most of the people, the groups, the squadrons, or the crews that were in the
Right.
Pomeroy group.
I have it from my father also. So.
Yeah, I don't have it complete, I don't think, but I have part of it.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time and your
Okay,
interview,
Ed,
and
appreciate
quite
it.
a pleasure to talk with you. So,
Appreciated it. And
okay.
thank you guys for doing it. I think it's a great program.
Okay, it's been our pleasure.
It'll work.
Okay.
Okay.